fat is normal, right? We all need fat. Fat is sometimes unfairly demonized. And humans are unusually fat creatures. So most animals have about 4%, 5% body fat. We evolved to have 3 to 5 times that. Skinny people have 3 to 5 times more body fat than our closest relatives, who are primates or most mammals. But and the reason fat is important for humans is that it's important for reproduction. We need fat to help make sure our brains always have energy. It's like money in the bank. We need to have fat to pay for our reproductive strategies. We need to have fat for all kinds of important reasons that it's been selected for in human evolution. So our bodies, unlike that of many other animals, or more so than other animals, whenever there's any extra energy, goes into fat. So that's one of the reasons why exercise or physical activity is so incredibly useful for preventing weight gain or weight regain. It's not great for losing weight, but it's phenomenal for preventing you from gaining weight. So exercise should always be part of any dieting strategy. The other thing that exercise does or physical activity does, is it affects hormone levels. So remember, what does natural selection care about?
Reproduction.
Exactly. How many babies you have, right? So when our bodies, when we stop being physically active, our bodies say, "Oh, there's extra energy," and hormone levels go up, especially in women. And in the second half of the menstrual cycle, what's called the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle, estrogen rises and especially progesterone rises. And those hormones, and they rise to unusually high levels,
right.
Levels that aren't necessary to get fertile, right? To get pregnant. Those higher hormone levels are what cause the higher levels of breast cancer in women, right? Because again, if you have all this extra energy, plow it into reproduction.
I think that's fascinating, because I think that we all associate eating food with more fat, and then the more fat makes you iller. But actually what you're saying is the eating of the food gives you this kind of the opposite of a calorie deficit, whatever that word is. You'll probably know that rather than me, but you've got all this extra calories, all this extra energy, and your body's then increasing hormones in women, which is then...
Well, it's not just eating food, it's also not being physically active,
yeah.
Right? So both of them affect what we call energy balance. You can be either in positive energy balance, which is you're gaining weight,
yeah.
or negative energy balance, you're losing weight. And most of us manage to, we're cycling back and forth and bike and forth. We stay pretty stable. When you're not spending energy on physical activity, again, I spent 500 calories this morning, running around Regent's Park for no reason whatsoever, right? That's energy. If I ate the same amount of food, I would just plow that into fat. I'm not a female, so I wouldn't increase my progesterone levels, right? But anyway, the point is that both of those are unhealthy, right? Too much fat causes inflammation.
Yeah.
And inflammation is what causes pretty much every disease that most of us are concerned about. It causes heart disease, it causes diabetes, type 2 diabetes, it affects cancer rates, it affects Alzheimer's, it affects arthritis. I mean, the list is long and very, very, very scary, right? So too much fat, and we can talk about why that's the case, but that is, it becomes inflammatory, and inflammation just mucks up our body. And also levels of hormones that are too high increase rates of cancer. So that's one pathway by which exercise is good. Yeah. But the other one, is that when I go for a run, or you play, a game of football, or whatever it is that you do, right? You're stressing your body, right? You're causing physiological stress pretty much in every system of your body. You're causing, your mitochondria, which are the little organelles in every cell that provide the energy, right? They're like the battery packs of every cell, right? Those mitochondria, as they produce energy, they're just spewing out what we call reactive oxygen species. Those are molecules that have unpaired electrons, and they're highly reactive. They cause, basically, when your apple browns, if you just let it sit there, that's the same thing. It's oxidation of tissue. Right. So those little reactive oxygen species cause damage everywhere, right? So exercise actually creates this sort of storm of really unhealthy molecules that are just flooding your body, right? It causes DNA damage. It causes proteins to become what we call glycated. They get damaged by heat and by, sugars start attaching to them and gum them up. You create tears in your muscles. You create cracks in your bone. I could go on, right? I mean, every single system of your body pretty much is stressed by exercise. But our bodies also evolved to cope with that, right?
You know, Huel has been a staple of my diet for some time, and I'm currently loving these Huel Daily A to Z vitamins. Tastes great, refreshing. Each can has 26 vitamins and minerals, offering 154 science-backed health benefits. Reduced tiredness and fatigue, normal cognitive function, healthy skin, hair and nails, and vitamin D for immunity. This is a vitamin drink that offers everything you could need it to. So what are you waiting for? Grab it right now in Tesco stores nationwide or at Huel.com and let me know what you think.
When we produce these reactive oxygen species, our cells produce antioxidants that mop that up. Our cells produce enzymes that repair our DNA, right? And keep the chromosomes from getting shortened and repair our muscles and repair our bones and keep our brains healthy. There are a gazillion of these proteins that we produce. And because, well, two important things. One is that because we never evolved not to be physically active, we never evolved to turn these mechanisms on in the absence of physical activity as much. And then secondly, they always overshoot, right? Because you don't want to, if you created all this stuff and you didn't mop up all the damage, you'd die younger if you were physically active, right? And we know that's not the case, right? So I often say it's like spilling coffee, right? You know, if I were to spill coffee on this table and then I cleaned it up, right? The table would actually be cleaner than before I spilled the coffee. Not that the table looks all that dirty, right? And it's the same thing in your body, right? You overshoot the damage repair, and the result is that you have maintenance and repair and also remodeling that repair your DNA and keep your chromosomes from getting too short and, keep your muscles from atrophying and the list goes on forever. Your brain, from the neurons in your brain from getting clogged up. We produce a factor called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's actually produced by your muscles in vast quantities when you're exercising, when you're physically active.
What does that do?
It's like a colleague of mine calls it miracle grow for the brain. It's actually causes new neurons to grow in the brain, and it actually repairs and keeps the synapses in your brain from getting damaged. It's probably one of the major reasons why exercise is by far an order of magnitude more potent for preventing Alzheimer's and dementia than any other known thing you can possibly do in your life, right? Because you're producing these molecules that help you. Another thing that we study in my lab is a molecule called IL-6, interleukin 6. We all heard about this during the COVID, right? Remember the cytokine storm? So cytokines are molecules that turn on your immune system, right? Yeah. So it turns out that we always knew that these molecules were produced by our blood cells, our white blood cells, but they're also actually produced by your muscle. And when you're active, and I have a lot more muscle in my body than I have white blood cells. So when I go for that run in the morning, I produce this prodigious quantity of IL-6, which at low levels is inflammatory, but at high levels turns off inflammation. So that's one of the reasons why people who exercise have lower levels of inflammation, because their muscles are shutting down that system, keeping us from getting damaged.